Hello, everyone. For my mini research project, I looked at three peer-reviewed journal articles. They were all pretty dated in terms of their publication dates. I can't believe I'm saying that. Two of them were in the aughts, so aka 2002 and 2003, and one of them was in 1988, so pretty close to the aughts. Sorry. Okay. The first article that I read was called Technical Editing as Quality Assurance Adding Value to Content by Michelle Corbin, Pat Mule, and Mike Boyd. This one was the one that was published in 2002. It was published in the Journal of Technical Communication. And just to offer a brief summary of my first article, Corbin, Mule, and Boyd, they discuss the potential for technical editing through content editing to add value to the information development process in the workplace. Just to provide more context, this article was published in 2002 again, and content editing was just taking off in the field according to the scholars and the authors of the article. So the authors saw a lot of opportunity with content editing to prove technical editors contribute a lot of value to their respective workplaces. At the time, there was this perception of technical editing as not having as much value in the workplace. There was this assumption that technical editors were just peer reviewers, they're just checking grammars, and as we all know from this class, that's just not the case. So, as a way for technical editors to show that they add value to their workplace, the scholars suggest technical editors view each editing activity as a quality assurance activity. Assurance activity. So they describe quality assurance by drawing parallels to the work software testers perform. Software testers have to test software to ensure that the software is working and adheres to the level of quality the company sets for their software. However, for technical editors, the scholars use the metaphor of advocate to outline potential areas where technical editors can add value, be it this value is in the form of correcting the language in the document, making sure the document complies to the company's style standards and legal concerns and whatnot. So, moving on to my verdict, I believe the article is worth it. It's worth reading, but it's a soft worth it, not a hard reading. This is not like you must read this article, but it does have value, especially to those of us who is interested in pursuing technical editing professionally. And I remember back to last class when Angela was going over contract editing, and I can't remember who, but someone asked a question about possible freebies to give to prospective clients that add value, and this would be a great resource to find ideas for possible freebies. Okay, the second article that I read was Situational Editing: A Rhetorical Approach for the Technical Editor by Mary Fran Mueller. And just a quick overview of the chapter. Basically, way back in the early 2000s, or the odds, as the technical term for it is called, grammatical effectiveness took precedence over rhetorical effectiveness, if you can imagine that. When it came to technical editing, Mueller is essentially sounding the alarm in this article. She claimed grammatical effectiveness and accuracy is important, but effectiveness should be equally important. Therefore, she proposed a rhetorical theory of technical editing based on a situational approach to editing tasks. With a situational approach, the rhetorical situation dictates whether the editor prioritizes grammatical effectiveness more or rhetorical effectiveness more, or maybe even like a blend of both equally. And moving on to my verdict, as much as I respect Dr. Bueller, and for those who don't know Dr. Bueller, well, she is deceased now. She passed away, but she was essentially really big in the field. She essentially was working as a technical communicator since like the 1960s. So definitely a popular name in my opinion, just based on the bio information I read about her. But I digress. So, as much as I believe this piece must have been so important back in like 2003, I don't think it's worth reading now. Only because we understand that rhetoric is equally important to technical editing. You know, I feel like you should only read this article if you need a refresher and would like to brush up on how to effectively incorporate the situational approach to your own editing practice. And if you just need a refresher of what rhetoric is, she definitely should focus on defining rhetoric a lot in this article. So unfortunately, that's a no, but that's just my opinion. And finally, my third article is called Masters, Slaves, and Infant Mortality Language Challenges for Technical Editing by Heather Brody Graves and Roger Graves. It was published in Technical Communication Quarterly in 1998. So, and technical communications ethics, as we know, is a huge area of research. However, it seemed at the time Graves were writing ethics, at least in terms of language use, wasn't quite as popular as it is now. So the scholars were trying to make the case that technical editors need a greater awareness of social and ethical ramifications of language use, as well as language theory, which is from the field of linguistics. So Graves saw it as the responsibility of technical editors to address unethical use of language. Technical editors are one of the last lines of defense, if you will, before a document is published. So it's kind of up to the technical editors to kind of flag these last minute problems in terms of problematic language choice. So Graves suggested that technical editors learn more about language theory, which will equip them in providing critiques stemmed in linguistic theories, which explain why certain language features and structures are problematic. And moving on to my verdict, I had a really hard time deciding if it was worth it or not. I think the field of technical communication at this point in time, honestly, do we really need to a reminder like this that language choice matters? I feel like we kind of got that down packed, at least to me as a novice. But I believe it's worth reading because it goes into a lot of linguistic theory that would be helpful if you were, ever in a situation like this as a professional editor, technical editor, and you have to convince the author why their language choice is problematic. And also, this is the first article I saw that specifically dealt with language and ethics from a technical editing perspective instead of a technical communication, perspective in general. So I thought that alone was worthy of keeping it. And in conclusion, I really enjoyed this assignment. I liked getting to read more into technical editing and getting to see various scholars' perspectives. And essentially, I got a glimpse at the evolution, if you will, or one of the earlier parts of, you know, the evolution of technical editing as a field. So I think that was very cool. So thank you. And that's a typo. Not thank you, Young. Just thank you. I conclude my presentation.